Bonjour à tous and welcome to another video. Today I'm responding to a request. I was asked recently to make a video on Quand Même, which is both a very common and wonderfully versatile French expression. However, translating it into English isn't a simple task, so I shall be using a few different examples, some from the news and some from a video by Cyprien, who you may know is a very popular French YouTuber and one who I've used in previous videos on more than one occasion. In fact, most recently I did an entire guided listening with one of his videos, so I'd certainly encourage you to watch that as well. However, the first port of call with expressions like this, I think, should be word reference. I've spoken about this dictionary before. It remains my favorite online dictionary. It's got audio, conjugations, a very active forum, example sentences. Honestly, it's the dog's well, you know. What's particularly good about word reference is that an expression like quand même has a separate entry. In some dictionaries you might find it buried somewhere in the numerous senses of quand, meaning when, but word reference has a separate page, which I think is better since quand même has nothing to do with quand at all. It's an expression whose component parts do nothing to help you understand it, so naturally it should have its own dedicated page. Naturally, the first entry is the most common, and I think if you're going to start using this expression, you should begin by using it to mean anyway, or other synonymous expressions such as all the same, still, anyhow, or even so. Notice as well that they include two French synonyms, cependant and malgré. I would advise caution with these. While they are pretty much synonymous in meaning, they each mean however and despite respectively, they're not quite the same in terms of grammar or formality. So don't assume that these synonyms can be used in the same way, but they do give you a good idea of the meaning. So I always think examples are best, so let's have a look at what word reference gives us. Bien que donné perdant, le joueur australien a gagné quand même. So although he was expected to lose, the Australian won anyway. And the second one, mes parents m'ont interdit de fréquenter Louis, mais j'irai le voir quand même. So my parents have forbidden me from seeing Louis, but I'm going to see him anyway. So let's see some more examples in the news. Non, les prix n'ont pas bougé, mais les courses peuvent quand même coûter plus cher. So first of all, notice that quand même is not at the end of the sentence this time. You could put it there. You could say les courses peuvent coûter plus cher quand même, but putting it directly after the verb suits the written style a little bit better. So this one says, no, prices haven't moved, but your grocery shopping could cost more anyway, or nonetheless. We have another one. Le voyage est annulé, mais il faut quand même payer. Again, quand même here goes after the verb, but you could put it at the end of the sentence. This one means the journey is cancelled, but you have to pay anyway. And then, of course, there's a COVID-19 related one because is there anything else in the news at the moment? Covid-19 en pleine forme est quand même jeté au tapis. So en pleine forme is in full fitness, et quand même jeté au tapis. So jeté au tapis literally means thrown to the carpet. So he was fully fit and yet he was still knocked down. Cyprien also uses it in this way.
S'il y a bien un truc qui ressemble pas à un fruit, c'est ça, quoi. Il y a quand même un mec qui s'est dit « Ah, on dirait un peu une poire !»
So he says, s'il y a bien un truc qui ne ressemble pas à un fruit, c'est ça, quoi. So if there's one thing that doesn't look like a fruit, it's that. Il y a quand même un mec qui s'est dit, ah, on dirait un peu une poire. So there is nonetheless, or however, or anyway, a guy who said to himself, yeah, that kind of looks like a pear. So this one is fairly simple. For all intents and purposes, it's synonymous with anyway in English. Its position is sometimes different, as we've seen, but remember that you can put it at the end of a sentence if you want to, especially in spoken French. So let's move on to the second entry, which shows that direct translations aren't always that good. If you look at the English, it says not really, which is true, but I don't think it quite captures the meaning here. I think instead it's best to look at the French, which says en espérant que non, hoping not. And yeah, it's used to suggest that you hope something isn't true. For example, Tu n'oserais pas faire ça quand même. Right? You wouldn't dare do that. Not really. Personally, I would translate that as you wouldn't dare do that. Would you? There's a sense of fear in there, right? There's some uncertainty about whether the person is actually going to do it or not. Now, this one's quite difficult to find examples for, especially in writing, since it's really about the tone of the speaker. So hopefully I've managed to get that meaning across to you. If not, don't worry, focus on the meanings that are clear to you, and over time you'll develop an instinct for its various uses. So that one is all about casting a little bit of doubt, hoping that something is not the case. The third entry suggests no and really, while the French says marque l'insistance. And yeah, this one is about making what you're saying stronger, particularly if you're criticizing the other person for saying or doing something a bit silly, kind of like a come on, don't be silly kind of thing. So the first example they give is Tu exagères quand même. Voler 10 euros à ton petit frère? Ça ne se fait pas. So, no, really, you've gone too far. Stealing 10 euros from your little brother isn't on, or you don't do that, right? So again, there's this critical tone. They're criticizing this person for having stolen 10 euros from their little brother. The second example, Je sais que Simon n'est pas sa voisine, mais de là lui crever ses pneus, quand même. Moi, je pense plutôt que c'est quelqu'un de sa famille qui a fait le coup. I know Simon doesn't like his neighbor, but from that to puncturing her tires, come on, I think it's more likely to be someone in her family. So again, we're criticizing this person for even entertaining the notion that Simon might have punctured his neighbor's tires. Cyprien gives us a slightly different example here, but again, he uses quand même to add emphasis to what he's saying.
C'est même pire que pas doué, je suis quand même le seul homme qui peut louper des pâtes.
He says, c'est même pire que pas doué, je suis quand même le seul homme qui peut louper des pâtes. So I'm not only bad at cooking, I am, in fact, the only man who can mess up pasta. Or maybe we could also say, I am perhaps the only man who can mess up pasta. Now, in fact and perhaps are almost opposites, but in both cases they serve to add strength to his claim of being the only man who can't cook pasta. So then we move on to the so-called traduction supplémentaire, although all they've really added here is an exclamation mark. Having said that, it is one of the easier ones, as quand même can be used on its own to express surprise. As the dictionary suggests, something like, really? No kidding. And I would add a slightly understated, terribly British, oh wow.
Wow.
Cyprien does this when he opens his fridge full of long out-of-date food and says,
Ah, quand même!
That's a perfect example of a surprised quand même. Finally, we have forme composée, those cases where quand même is used in conjunction with other words. It's always a good idea to look at these because they're usually nice and simple examples that you can use when you're just starting to get to grips with it. We start with merci quand même, which of course means thank you anyway. Obviously, you could have guessed that one, but you can't always guarantee that just because you can put two words or expressions together in English, that you can do the same in French, so it's nice to verify that. It just so happens that in this case, you can indeed say merci quand même. The next one is quand bien même, which as you can see is classified as soutenu, meaning formal, so you're not really going to use this one in spoken French very much. In this case, it means even if or even though. So the example they give is Quand bien même tu aurais ton permis de conduire, je ne te prêterai pas ma voiture. In a more casual style, you might see Même si tu as ton permis de conduire, je ne te prêterai pas ma voiture. Even though you have your driving license, I wouldn't lend you my car. We then move on to quand même pas, which here is translated as hardly or just not. Again, it's used to add emphasis, here with a slightly annoyed tone. Je n'ai quand même pas cuisiné pendant 6 heures, tout ça pour que tu me dises que tu n'as pas faim. You can really feel the anger in this one, right? I haven't just spent 6 hours cooking just for you to turn around and say you're not hungry. You could, of course, take quand même out of this and say je n'ai pas cuisiné pendant 6 heures. But that would remove that sense of irritation. And finally, another quand même pas, which they translate as I wouldn't go that far, or hardly, which I think is pretty good. Once again, you can think of this one as adding strength, this time just to the word no. As you can see, the French explanation says il ne faut pas exagérer, don't exaggerate, which is another nice way of explaining the meaning here. So they say, et alors tu vas virer Pascal? quand même pas, mais je vais lui donner un avertissement. So, are you going to fire Pascal? Well, I wouldn't go that far, but I'm going to give him a warning. And there we have it, quand même, its meanings, and hopefully some examples that have helped you to understand it a little bit more. As I said before, I think it's best to take this one bit by bit, so if you're going to start use it, stick to one meaning and then gradually let it snowball as you learn. I don't think there's any use in trying to use it in all of its different senses all in one go. Personally, I don't think there's a more comprehensive list of definitions than on word reference, so I would definitely use that as my main source of information. Of course, if you have any other suggestions, please do let us all know. Sometimes all it takes is a slightly different perspective and everything becomes crystal clear. I encourage you all to give this one a go, write some sentences in the comments and we can build up a bank of examples for everyone else to use. Feel free to ask any questions that you might have as well. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, à bientôt.